Right, so hello, yes, I'm Natalie from Leicestershire and Rutland Bat Group. Welcome everybody. It's going to be a quick run through, seeing as not much has happened due to COVID this year, although we have been pretty busy. So in terms of activities, we led 3 bat walks in September, and we thought as a bat group that we still wanted to keep something happening for our members. So we held 3 COVID safe bat walks. There's quite a lot of logistics and risk assessments involved, but all 3 walks were fully booked compared to previous years. So I think people were very keen to get out and about. We held 2 Zoom sessions. One was an introduction to bats and one was an introduction to sound analysis. They went down well. In terms of bat care, because this is every 2 years, in 2019 we had 155 bats in care of 10 different species, with 17 carers on our bat group network, bat carers network. But then this year we had 21 calls in June, 68 calls in July. There was a call every day in July, 5 calls a day between 15th and 23rd of July, with 5 species encountered. So we had common pips, prono pip, natterers, liselers and brown long-eareds. This year, due to COVID restrictions and shielding, and of course Leicester being in the lockdown basically since March, it reduced our bat carer numbers slightly. So we had 11 this year, but they did a fantastic job considering the circumstances. And our highlight, well, one of the highlights was we recorded Greater Horseshoe bat in April and May at a nature reserve in northwest Leicestershire. So we've had the odd record hibernating in the tunnels from time to time, but not for probably about 8 years. But to have probably a vagrant one flying around a nature reserve was really good news. So that's that. We did Nbnp Counts. So these are church one related, so I won't go through it, but I'll leave it up. So some of them were the Bats in Churches project related, and some were just general counts. We did notice that at Whissendine Church, we had 60 natterers this year, which was the highest for since 2010, because the church installed floodlights. But this year, because the church was closed due to COVID, they didn't put the floodlights on. So more natterers returned to the church this year. But yeah, the number of roosts we count has steadily declined over the years. We don't have any brown long-eared roosts in the scheme anymore, and some weren't counted due to COVID-19, but hopefully next year it will be better. And if anyone wants to have a look, Jenny Harris, our bat carer extraordinaire, she was on the local news, and as was Lisa. It's like a positive, well, it's a bit of a depressing bit, but positive angle on bat care that Jenny does in Leicestershire and Rutland, with some videos and photographs and things like that. So have a look, just type in Jenny Harris, BBC Bats, and then you can find it. It's just a 2-minute clip. Right, that's me.
Thank you very much, Natalie.
Thanks, Becky. Good morning, everyone. I realise it's been quite a while since we last had a Midlands Bat Conference, and so the last thing to happen was just after the last conference. So just before we get into that, some quick updates. The group is 36 years old this year. We currently have 272 members. Last year we managed to put on 94 different events for both our members and the general public. For obvious reasons, this year we're much lower on that, but we've still managed to squeeze in 21 events over the year. This year the bat care team have done a great job. They've had 71 bats in care over the last year, and we currently have 14,500 records in the database. So just a few months after the last Midlands conference, way back in 2018, we went through a rebranding exercise and we've updated our logo. This was our original logo that we had created for us by Tony Taylor back in the early 1990s. It was digitized in the early 2000s, and we had lots of different materials, and there was no real consistency between all of them. So we wanted to keep the logo both recognizable for people who've come to associate it with us, but we also felt it was important to honour the legacy of the late Tony Taylor, who created that logo for us. So we called upon a company in Derby who created this for us, so we're really pleased with that. We had a launch event for that on our new website in a small theatre in Derby, which was a sellout event. We had the lovely Joe and Lisa come up from the Bat Conservation Trust as well to give some guest talks for us, and that was picked up by the local radio station as well. Updating the website was a well worth effort. Last year it's had just under 19,000 different page views. This year there's been less news stories, again due to COVID, But even so, there's still over 15,000 page views to date for the last year. So there's an awful lot of information being digested for what is really a very small group. In 2019, we had a new record for the county. This is one of our National Bat Monitoring Programme roost sites that's counted annually. And as far as we know, it's the largest known brown on-geared bat roost in the country that Phil Briggs has for the Nbnp. And in 2019, 252 brown on-geared bats emerged from that roost. This video was taken during a dawn swarming survey with infrared cameras. And again, in 2019, we had another county record. We've got an awful lot of cave and mine sites in the county, in the Peak District. We had one particular cave site with 34 bats of 4 species found in a single underground site, which for us is a record. Now, bat groups out there listening, that might not sound like a lot, but when you've got 300 plus cave sites across the Peak District and an uncounted number of mine sites, and when you think that all of the underground sites that we've surveyed so far in the county have had some sort of bat activity in there, 34 bats in one of those sites is a good count for us. It included some reasonable clusters of bats like this mixed group here in the picture of both Durbentons and whiskered and Brandt's bats. And we've got an ongoing project with the Moors for the Future partnership. We've got an Anabat Express detector on long-term loan with the guys up there. They are improving the Derbyshire uplands. They've got monitoring stations like this one to assess how their work is having an impact on the upland areas of Derbyshire. The image you can see here on the left is Kinder Scout. This image was taken on the left, and you can just see the posts that the Anabat Express is locked to. And the image on the right is the same site back in 2011. So you can see that the work they're doing is really fantastic. That joint project has now recorded the highest altitude bats ever found in Derbyshire at 613 metres, which is just below the highest point in Derbyshire, Kinder Scout. The detector was left out for 2 weeks in July and August this year, and an impressive 5 species were found at that site. Common Ansiparana pipistrelles, nocturnal brown long-eared, and a Myotis bat species. With up to 35 bat passes per night, it's not just 1 or 2 bats, there's quite a bit of activity up there, and sometimes extended periods of contact at all times of night. And it seems likely that some bats are using this habitat rather than simply commuting over it. And just to wrap up, this year we've had some exciting news. We had a bit of excitement during lockdown. Our recorder, Alan Rowe, had an Anabat Express out in his garden all the way through winter and left it out during lockdown. That carried on through to the summer, and on the 1st of June had a possible Barbastelle bat call in the south of Derbyshire. Barbastelle is only known from one location right up on the Nottinghamshire border in the northeast of the county. We couldn't say from that call that it was definite Barbastelle. There wasn't the 2-part call that we really need to confirm that. We managed to get a full spectrum detector over to him, and 9 days later recorded this 2-part call. So we've now confirmed Barbastelle bats in the south of the county, which is really exciting. We've purchased some SM Mini detectors from Wildlife Acoustics, and we've got these out in the south of the county trying to find out more information. And you might well have seen just in the last couple of weeks running up to Halloween, we've had a local artist, Sarah Perkins. She's created this lovely piece of artwork for us, this bat painting. We auctioned that off on an online auction site, which raised us a fantastic £360. The Twitter hashtag that we made for that, Bats Not Just for Halloween, was picked up by Radio Derby, and we managed to get a decent length interview out with them just before Halloween, telling them about both bats and the work that we do as a group. If you want to get your hands on the print edition of this, there's a limited print run of 100 that Sarah's selling off, and 25% of the sales of each of those prints will come to the Bat Group. So if you want the link to that, you can find it on our website. And that's it for Derbyshire. Thank you very much.
So just going to do a quick chat about what the Bat Group, Birmingham and the Black Country have been up to this year so far. So we currently got 88 members. We have just renewed our membership year. So hopefully that will begin to increase a little bit more as we move on. We've had over 100 bat care calls this year, and our biggest superstar has been Chris Sherlock, our bat care coordinator, who has personally taken a bunch of those calls herself. But so far the group has about 18 bat carers, and 4 of those are BCT active. Before COVID, we managed to do 4 in-person events, which were 3 endoscope surveys / training events and 1 introduction to bat care event. And then since COVID, we've actually managed to do 101 surveys, as Morgan said earlier, mainly for the Urban Bat project. We've managed to get out, obviously adhering to local restrictions and national guidelines for different things, to actually do 101 surveys, which is absolutely amazing. Also, we've got a couple of online events happening, which I'm going to shamelessly plug, and we also have a new website. So if I just move across, this is our brand new website. You can tell we've been a little bit bored, not being able to get out to do a lot of things, and Morgan's created a new website for us. And throughout our website, you can see that we've got new members talks coming up. So our next members talk is the Bats of the Ecuador Cloud Forest, hosted by Morgan, and that's on the 27th of November. And then in January, we've got the members talk, the tent making bats of Corcovado, Costa Rica, on the 29th of January. You can pay £6 and you get access to all of our talks and any other future online events that we have. And then another shameless plug, we actually have some t-shirts available. I know everyone loves their t-shirts and loves to buy one. So they are £15 each, or you can get 2 for £15. We have 4 different types of t-shirt. So we've got the Guano Happens Brumbats t-shirt. We are sciencing so hard right now t-shirt, which I think Morgan's currently wearing. And then this is Science No Data is Still Data Urban Bat Project t-shirt. And then again, just in a different format for ladies fit in comparison to the unisex. Again, as I said, they're £15 each, or they're £25 for the 2. And that's pretty much it for my sort of update for the Birmingham and Backcountry Bat Group.
As with lots of the other bat groups this year, we have struggled to carry out many events at all due to the restrictions of the pandemic. At the start of the year, we did carry out an introduction to bats and bat ID training course, which went really well, and we hope to do that again at some point in the future. We also went to the Bat Care and Rehab Conference, which was a great day. We held our AGM in early March, and we were really pleased to have Colin Morris present to give us a fascinating talk about the horseshoe bats. We were also involved with Derbyshire Bat Group for some of the addict hibernation surveys earlier this year, which were great. And in June, we took part in an online Great Green Gathering event with Staffordshire University, which was a great day and had lots of interesting talks and ideas of ways to stay connected with nature during lockdown. So we have been able to carry out some bats in churches surveys throughout July and August, which have been really good. And we hope to be able to repeat and expand on that again next year where possible. We've been involved with works in a pillbox scheme along the River Trent and the River Dove as part of the Transforming the Trent Valley scheme run by Staffordshire Wildlife Trust. We carried out a survey along the river to identify the species present, and we recorded natterers, daurbentons, brown long-eared and common pipistrelle. And we hope to be able to assist in modifying some of these pillboxes to benefit hibernating bats. Next year, we hope to get members involved with the surveys and the ongoing monitoring there. We've also recently been handed a new bat box scheme at Wedgwood in North Staffordshire, which has finished its monitoring period as part of a development licence. We hope to be able to add some more bat boxes to the scheme and use it as a great bat ID training site. There's some fishing lakes near to where the bat boxes are, and we hope to do some surveys in that area to identify some more species, as currently they've only recorded common and soprano pips in the bat boxes. We've also taken the time this year to review our records, and with the help of the brilliant Steve Rowe from Derbyshire Bat Group, we've produced a Tetrad map for the county showing the numbers of bats in each tetrad. This is now available on our brand new website, which launched this year, and everyone can download the image if they want to and view the areas which have got no records. Next year, we hope to really push a surge in surveying these areas without any records and fill in those gaps. So as with some of the other bat groups, our care and rehab team have had their busiest year ever. with a record 176 bats in care so far this year, which is a 28% increase in our previous highest ever number of bats. We think this is due to more people being at home and being able to see injured and grounded bats and report them. So the vast majority of our bats in care have been pipistrelles, with 6 whiskered brants, 7 brown long-eareds, 1 Dorbenton and 1 female noctual, who was pregnant when she came into care and gave birth to her pup in care. July was our busiest month, with a total of 74 bats coming into care, all at high dependency level, either infants or very young juveniles, and often multiple bats from the same roost. We had as many as 8 calls in one day from all corners of Staffordshire and beyond into other counties. Many of the bats were in poor condition, with some having been around for a couple of days before help was sought. Some infants were in particularly poor condition, burdened with bites. They were then nursed for days, only to be lost in the end. Sadly, 35% of the bats taken in either died or had to be put to sleep. And in some cases, this was after large amounts of time and effort spent with the bats. In other cases, bats would die soon after coming into care, having been close to death, and when warmed and rehydrated, give in to that inevitable outcome. In positive news, though, a good number of infants were successfully reared, weaned, flight and hunting skills assessed, and then released. There were also successful adult releases too, including the pregnant female, which you can see at the top of the screen there, the noctual, who, having had her pup in captivity, went to Otley in Yorkshire for 4 weeks to be assessed in a larger flight cage and returned to be released in her own area. A total of 37% of the bats taken into care have been successfully released this year. We've still got 17 bats in care, and these will be kept over the winter with the hope to release the majority next year. So our hopes for next year involve training more carers, as this year's training had to be cancelled. It's hoped that those who were booked to attend this year may wish to do so instead next year. Our flight cage, which is held at the Wosley Centre, which is Staffordshire Wildlife Trust space, is in need of major repairs and was subject to some temporary fixes this year, but will need much more work next year. So Jane and Suzanne, our bat care coordinators, have done a fantastic job this year and would like to acknowledge the amazing work that has taken place by their team of bat carers. Above and beyond is the phrase that's being used frequently this year, given the difficult times that we've all faced. A big thank you also goes out to all who've collected bats this year. Obviously, next year we hope to do lots more survey work. As Steve alluded to earlier, we have got a Myotis Woodland project in North Staffordshire, which we hope will be in full swing again next year. And finally, this year was our 30th anniversary of the Bat Group. We had hoped to carry out a big celebration in August with all members, but this will be postponed until it's safe to do so. A mini celebration with the committee members and the all-important cake was of course had in a socially distant manner. And following Brumbats' excellent talk and plug of merchandise, we also do have some 30th anniversary mugs and pens and pencils. Should anybody wish to purchase any of those, they can contact us through our website. Thank you very much.
There we go. Well, that's us in the Shropshire Bat Group. Looks like a bit of a family affair. It's just the way it's worked out this year. We do tend to rotate officers, so John Morgan stood down as chairman, and I became chairman this year. Right. So what are we up to? Well, these are the things we we do all the time. Our usual VBRV training, obviously not this year. That's had to be abandoned. Might try and do something online. I've got to say I've neglected the online options this year quite a lot, and so I think we'll try and get something going this year again. We've been doing hibernation site monitoring. Obviously, people know us, will know this since 1993, and we're still doing that. We look in all the old metal mines, mostly lead mines in Shropshire, every winter, all the ones we can get into anyway, with the help of the Caving and Mining Club. We've been doing our usual trapping until COVID, mostly nowadays at Snail Beach. It used to be at Landamerrick as well. That's John Morgan is the driving force behind that, and it's now called the Swarming Project since we know it's swarming. You've heard about our bat box project, so I won't go into that. And we've got, in various ways, been looking at movements of horseshoe bats in North Shropshire, in Mid Wales and South Shropshire. So the North Shropshire Mid Wales one was what we call the Tanak Valley project. So here's Llanymynech, where I live. This is the Tanak Valley, and we some years ago started ringing and radio tagging because we had greater horseshoes here, hibernating and breeding, hibernating in the mines here. This is Llanymynech Hill, and we followed their movements, and we get bats moving from here up to the slate mines in the Tanak Valley, 20 excuse me, 20 kilometers away. For those who don't know Shropshire, this is our patch here, and the topography is quite interesting. We've got this limestone area here. This is the Welsh border, which makes life interesting sometimes. And we've got the Stiper Stones here, which is full of lead mines, riddled with lead mines, and then the Long Mynd here, and some hills here that are not all that batty. Right, so our mine counts, of course, just to remind people that these bats are not just simple walk-in levels like some people imagine. We have big voids. This is the stope at Snail Beach. You can see those people, those are real people. And we often have to use ropes to get into some of the mines. This is at Hugleth, and this is another mine at Hugleth as well. And that's me disappearing down a hole. That's the rope that I have come down, was going down rather. And this has led us to be able to see that there have been real increases in lesser horseshoes. We think in lesser horseshoes because they're fairly easy to count, and because lesser horseshoes have to hibernate underground, that these data really mean something. We're not seeing all the population, of course. We miss quite a lot in the bigger mines, but these are real increases in bat numbers. But the problem is it's been difficult to interpret because of the complexities of getting into these mines, and it's only since about 2000 here that, or even a year or two later, that we've been, with the use of rope techniques, and we've been able to be fairly sure that we're getting a proper picture. And these are nearly all of them aggregates of 2 or 3 mine workings close together. Moving on quickly, right, that's the same map again, of course, but I've just put it up to remind people that now we're going to be talking down here about bat movements. Oh no, I'm still back on the Tanak Valley. I'll go up. Yeah, so this is the movements up and down the Tanak Valley. I got ahead of myself. So these are greater horseshoes, mostly ringed. Yeah, these all ringed in the Llanymynech area. And with the greaters, we have few enough of them that we're able to give them individual colours. Sometimes I have to go to 2 colours. We run out of single colours. So that we know each bat without having to read the ring number. But with the lessers, we just give them a colour according to the site. Not that we've ringed at all that many sites. Okay, next project in South Shropshire. Natural England invited us to take part in their Stepping Stones wider project, which was looking at really connectivity and corridors between the various high ground. We've got the Stiper Stones here, as I pointed out before, the Long Mynd, and then some higher ground over here. It doesn't take account of the Welsh border, of course. The bats don't know about that. And we've got Caer Caradoc and so on over here. So they were interested in that and asked us to look at bat movements there and how bats use the landscape. This is to inform management of this area and trying to encourage wildlife-friendly patches between these excuse me, between these areas. So having been invited, and since they offered to buy some kit. We couldn't refuse, and anyway, it was something I'd been wanting to do for a long time. So we started trapping and ringing, got a project license for that at some of the mine sites, but particularly Snail Beach and another mine about a mile away. So this is at Snail Beach, and we put on lesser horseshoes 62 blue rings, and at this other mine site we ringed 8 lesser horseshoes with yellow rings. We even caught a couple of greater horseshoes, and we put different coloured rings on those, and that's one of them. This one is an interesting bat because he calls at 78 kilohertz. So the bat detectors we've got in the mines, we know when it's him, because there aren't many that call at that frequency. And we used harp traps and mist nets, as Dave Lee will know, because he tended to come up and help us out and bring a van load of both. Right, carry on. I've only got 5 minutes. So in the mines, then we're picking up. We counted, did our usual winter counts, and obviously we were looking for bats with yellow rings from one mine and bats with blue rings from another. And this is the greater horseshoe, which seems to be more or less resident, at least spring and autumn, in the mine where we put the yellow rings on. See him quite often. So right, to get to the end of that little project, in the first winter, we've only had the one, of course, what with COVID. What we found was this is the mine where we put yellow rings on. We put 8 rings on, and the winter after we put the rings on, we found 6 of those with those rings on in that mine. So those ones had stayed loyal to the mine. They hadn't moved, and reasonable recovery, so we didn't seem to have been hurting the bats too much. In Snail Beach, where we put 60 odd rings, blue rings, when we counted in the winter, we only got 2 bats with rings on. We had another in a nearby small mine with a blue ring on, 4 over at Huglith here, a couple in our mine with the yellow rings, and then 1 way down here, 1 over in Wales here, and another one off the screen here in a location I'm not allowed to tell you about, also in Wales, about 13-14 kilometres away. So what we can conclude here, we think, is that lesser horseshoes really do swarm at Snail Beach Mine. I know everyone says lesser horseshoes do not swarm. Don't believe it. Lesser horseshoes do swarm. We can't prove that they come from far away to swarm at Snail Beach, but they go some distance after they've swarmed. So it seems reasonable that we've shown that bats come from a distance to swarm. The Welsh ones, of course, were picked up by, in this case, the Montgomery Wildlife Trust people, and over here by NRW people counting their hibernation sites. I think that's, yeah, okay. Well, we don't spend all our time in the dark and underground. We do occasionally get out into the daylight and socialise a little bit. That's me. That's me last slide.
Thanks very much,
Mine
Mike.
time.
For that.
Yes, just about right. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks for that, Mike. Really interesting stuff there. I like those anodized coloured rings. That's a really great idea. So next up, we've got... Oh, sorry, I should ask. Has anybody got any questions for Mike just before I move on? No? Okay.
All dazzled, right.
In which case, we'll move on to the final spotlight of the day with Paddy Collins from Knots Bat Group. Paddy?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Screen sharing coming in. Okay. Thanks all for continuing to listen. I know I'm the last one. We've tried to squeeze all the projects and activities Nottinghamshire Bat Group has been up to since the last Midlands Conference into this little presentation. I feel I should give you a forewarning that some of the pictures don't adhere to current guidelines on social distancing and bat work, but I assure you they were done pre-COVID. Last November saw the completion of the Echolocation Location project, which was funded by the Heritage Lottery Fund, and it resulted in this publishing of the Bats of Nottinghamshire book, more commonly known to us as the Batless. The bat list maps the distribution of Nottinghamshire's 12 bat species through 563 tetrads across the county, which is an overall coverage of 91.5%. This valuable information has afforded us the opportunity to designate 6 local wildlife sites, more information of which you can find on our website up in the top corner, just there. Over the last few years, we've been involved in the National Enthusiast Pipistrelle project, and the late spring and summer of 2019 saw multiple nights of heart trapping at various sites along the Trent and Idle Valley. The bottom left there is everyone's favourite picture of an enthusiast, soprano and common all in a line. We spent the winter months building a total of 130 new bat boxes of various designs, and subsequently have erected 7 new bat box schemes across the county. Since then, we have led numerous bat box checks at both old and new sites, and happily can report that we found 2 of our new schemes are already being used. I will also add that these later checks were all done via torchlight and from small groups of people. The group are currently involved in a lottery-funded project called Minor to Major, which is focused upon the wonderful Sherwood Forest. As part of the project, the group has received training in bat call analysis and the use of Anabat Insight by Neil Middleton of Batability, to whom we extend a massive thank you. Although COVID has stalled our planned walks and talks, we did manage to deploy static detectors across 4 separate woodlands and are currently using our new developed skills to analyse these calls. Our bat care team has been going from strength to strength with great turnouts to our annual training events. So much so, we are running 2 further Zoom webinars attended by local volunteers, as well as veterinary nurses and employees of local wildlife sanctuaries, who are sometimes inadvertently the frontline staff of bat care. In 2019, we had 70 bats pass through the system, but 2020 has been even busier. We've had well over 100 bats, including more than 60 pups. And despite our growing team, we must say another thank you to Kit Wood and Gail Armstrong for taking groups of our pups and giving them valuable flight training in their cages. The success rate for a release in both years has been over 50%. Hopefully this works. Got nice footage from a thermal scope of a Dorby foraging on the River Trent here. So this year, Nick Clayton has started phase 1 of the Dorbenton's project, which has been using a backtracking method to attempt to locate potential maternity roosts. During these surveys, the activity led surveyors upstream to a potential roost over the river, though unfortunately no bats were seen to re-enter any roost points during the subsequent dawn survey, so this project is definitely going to be continued. For the Wildlife Trust's 30 Days Wild in June, we ran the big Knots Backwatch. We used social media to ask the public to stand outside their house at dusk and record the number of bats they saw every 10 minutes for up to an hour. This resulted in over 100 replies to our data collection page, helping to identify several new roosts. Members of Knots Bat Group have been lucky enough to travel south on several occasions to assist Dr. Danielle Linton in ongoing long-term monitoring projects, including the White and Bat project. During our last visit in February 2020, we were treated to a presentation from Danny in the bottom right there, which shows all the results that she has accumulated from all of this long-term monitoring. In the spring of 2019, we ran a training course on potential bat roost features in trees taught by Tom Bennett, who I also believe is attending today. So again, thank you to Tom. After some in-depth classroom stuff, we headed out into Woollerton Park to put our new knowledge into practice. At the start of this year, we undertook hibernation surveys at Crestwell Crags. We had full access to the caves between the public tours and had a record of 8 bats of 4 species. These were natterers, Dorbentons, whiskered brants and brown long-eared. Our members were also invited to attend hibernation surveys run by South Yorkshire Bat Group in Doncaster. As you know, due to current climate, a lot of Bat Group events cannot be run. To overcome this, we've held 2 Zoom webinars in addition to the bat care training events. These were the Bats of Africa by Angelina Estafiou and Bats of Plymouth Wood by Michael Walker, and we intend to run more and more of these webinars in the near future. And that concludes a very brief summary of the work we've been up to, and stay safe and thank you for listening, everyone.